world's oldest baking den. That's what the host
See, that was
say.
my joke British accent, but that's your real British accent.
Keating and I lived in Britain for like 2 months once.
Yeah.
So
And
she should be better at that.
I picked up a little while I was there. Sorry I came back with a bit of an accent then.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Game Jelly Season 2.5, Echoes of the Forgotten Island. Echoes of the Forgotten Island. Thank you.
This one's got a subtitle.
This one's got a subtitle. We were going to do that to Ruth, but we forgot. Well, one of us forgot.
I was busy looking pretty.
This is our goofier, sillier show for the interim period of 2024 over the summer. And today we have a very special guest. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sagan. I've been on a previous episode of Game Jelly, Tom Waits' Mole Recon.
Hi, I'm Sagan
very
Costello from
serious
Tom
show.
Waits' Mole Recon.
I'm Sagan Costello. Sagan Shahmehri Costello is how I was credited, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm their sibling.
Yes.
Let's go.
And I'm Tieren Costello. I'm a designer and a composer, and I'm coming to you from this couch.
And I'm Keating Shahmehri. I'm an artist and a designer, and I'm coming to you from this couch.
And the reason we say this couch, if you're listening on your podcast player, is that this one's being recorded. It's on YouTube. You can check it out in the description below. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can find this episode and a bunch of old episodes on podcast players. So today we're doing a Great British Bake Off, it says here, episode. We're making a game out of that. So take it away. You can tell I'm a big fan of this show.
So you've watched some of it, Tier, but you've watched a lot of it, Sagan, right?
I've watched most of it at least 2 or 3 times. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I've watched seasons 1 and 4. I've watched most of seasons 1 and 4.
And I've watched like the last few. I've not watched the early ones, but I've watched like 8 and 9 and those ones.
Nice.
So we have we've got some good coverage here, I think.
Yeah.
Bringing sort of together all eras of the Great British Bake Off, which I think will be really important to this game. I think this game should really let you experience all eras of Bake Off together.
Okay.
I think that's really important to it.
So this was okay. This is getting into it a little bit early, because we haven't talked about what the gameplay is or anything.
Perfect.
But my very first question when I thought, what's a Great British Bake Off game gonna look like? Also, for what it's worth, it's called the Great British Baking Show legally now. It's like a weird, complicated thing.
We're calling it Bake Off for legal reasons.
Yeah.
So we can develop it.
It's not called that because it's illegal for them to call it that, to be clear.
Yeah.
So us calling it that is not any more legal.
But the very first place that my brain went is Prue just an alternate skin for Mary Berry? And for the hosts, is that also the case? Is it just like the hosts or are they like, I don't know. I don't know who we're playing as yet.
Let's take it in a totally different direction from the implied direction and make this a fighting game.
Oh!
I don't actually think we should do that, but that was just what popped into my head. I was like, Paul Hollywood, the Hollywood Shake would be like his ultimate.
That's so good.
That's pretty good, yeah.
But okay, scrapping that. Let's take it in a totally different direction from that direction.
I think we're playing as a sort of mysterious contestant. And then I think we're learning more about them through their bakes over the course of it.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
I do like that, yeah.
And I think we should have a really zany cast of characters in the bakers in the tent. I have a couple written down here.
I can see that.
Do you want me to hop right into some ideas for bakers?
Yes.
The youngest baker ever, an 8-year-old who Paul is clearly intimidated by.
And so he's like really like mean to this 8-year-old
Exactly.
because he clearly feels like competitive with them.
Yeah, the thing that he always does is he'll like, you know, be like I'm on the wrong side of the bench. And he's like being jokey about it, but genuinely is intimidated by it.
So funny.
So
That's good. That's good.
The other one I have is the oldest baker ever, a 112-year-old who Prue is clearly envious of.
Okay. Okay.
Which I think could be sort of a similar, you know, she's like, I wish I was in this competition. I wish I was in this competition. No. So I'm sorry, everybody. Continue.
You were talking.
No. Yeah. I was.
I like the idea of learning more about the contestant through their bakes, because it's like that. There's, you know, it's a thing that they frequently do on the show, is like have a competition, you know, a challenge that's like do something based on one of your childhood memories, or do something based on somebody who's important to you, or something like that. So then learning about the person you're playing as in the first person from like looking at your own recipes, I think is a cool idea.
Totally.
Yeah, I love that. I was thinking going into flashbacks. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, this is kind of Ratatouille adjacent, but like, you could do like going into flashbacks of all the different contestants based on their food.
That's true.
Which could be kind of an interesting take. I mean, like, taking a big swing that I wouldn't want to run with, but you could do, like, someone, you play as Paul Hollywood, but then tasting people's food, you get to go and explore their childhoods and stuff. Mm-hmm. Or, like, you play as a different contestant and, like, tasting... Yeah?
A version of this game where you play as Paul Hollywood.
I did.
And it's, like... You know, like PS2 Harry Potter game style, like you're running around to the grounds as Paul Hollywood.
Well, that sounds great.
And he's like that, and then you like, you know, run to where you need to go and like taste the food, and you have to like decipher the different tastes, and then it's like underproved, and it's like it's like almost like a detective
compulsions rise to the surface of what to say or do, and then maybe like a mini game where, or like a gameplay thing where you have to string words together in the right order to say something like really biting and clever.
Right.
I also do love the idea that it would be like Prue is like there and she like jogs ahead of you to the door and is like, come on, and then she just stands there until you
that's so
insane. Yeah, that is pretty great. That's a good idea. I do kind of prefer the emergent storytelling thing of like you're playing as this character who you don't know about, but then you learn from what they do, and it's just a cooking game. But then at some point it's do something from your child, you know, do something that someone you know used to bake or something like that, and then it does like a flashback sequence to them. I think that's the more elegant design. We can keep going with the less elegant design if people want to.
I have to say the less elegant design speaks to me on a pretty deep level, but it is less elegant.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of positive, a little bit of negative.
I think that if you told Paul Hollywood that you were going to make a Great British Bake Off game, and then he found out that he wasn't the playable character, he would be shocked. But
that's so funny. I think we should have I think this should be like a Wii graphics kind of era of game. I think we should have it be like a little Uncanny Valley, like, you know, medium poly versions of all of these characters. I think is the art style that I picture most strongly.
I'm down for that. There's some modern games that do that really nicely. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I feel like sometimes when you recommend a game on Game Jelly, I'll look it up and it's like that exact kind of style. Maybe like would a short hike qualify for that kind of?
Almost. Yeah. Something kind of like that. I think we had Trivial Pursuit for the Wii.
Oh God,
that sounds right.
That sounds right.
I pictured those graphics for this game. We don't have to. You guys are just
fine.
as much.
That's fine.
No, it's fine. It's fine if we do the Trivial Pursuit game.
Well, I guess I'm wondering how it translates because they're humans in this.
Yeah, picture humans, but in the Trivial Pursuit style.
Okay.
I do just like the idea of like the tent as a setting that you're free to explore though. So it's not just like cutscene cook. It is like you're walking around, you're looking for ingredients, you're chatting with other people, you have this cast of goofy characters like you're proposing, and then you learn a little bit of something about this main character's background. That, I think, is a fun, like, basic pitch for this game, basic premise.
It's true. There's a very large, like, corpus of interviews and stuff with people who have been on the show over the years, who have, like, done, like, you know, tell all behind the scenes, whatever kind of things. And I always think it's interesting how much, like, there's so many people on set who obviously don't make it into the final cut.
Right.
Like, there are people who have to wash their dishes after they're done. There are people there are people who like do the like grocery runs while they're baking, and if somebody is missing an ingredient, they have people who are ready to go grab groceries or whatever.
Right.
They're, you know, it's a huge production. And I'm always kind of, yeah, I mean, I think that getting into like the logistics of the text
That's such a funny.
I mean, there's also like doing an expose.
Yeah,
we just make up terrible stuff they're doing. No, yeah, I do like that. I do like that idea of like meeting, like season 9 of The Office, how you meet the people who are behind the camera. Okay, I'm not having any good ideas. No, like something where it is like, oh, I need these ingredients, so like this would go on the list, and the person runs out this many times per day, and like, yeah, like doing the prep work, like interactions with it isn't just a in the sense that like Trivial Pursuit, or not Trivial Pursuit, like a Jeopardy game or something would show like, here's what you imagine a contestant's life would be like based on your viewing of it. This could be a little bit more like, here's what it's actually like to be on this set. I mean, who knows what it's actually like? We don't know.
We don't even know, because none of us have been there, as far as I know.
Yeah. Sorry, I zoned out for a second there because I was thinking about designing the game that we're talking about. Something that could be kind of interesting would be doing it like as like a branching paths kind of thing, where there are like different routes. Because the way that the show is structured is there's 10 episodes and you either stay or leave on a given episode. It could be that it's like, you know, a multiple paths game where you can leave early on or you can make it all the way to the final. You know, instead of having it be a thing where like your victory is assumed from the beginning and then it's like you retry each challenge until you make it to the next level. If instead it's like every run is one where you're trying to make it to the finale.
Let me take a swing with this, which I like this idea. You're almost proposing something that's like roguelite-ish, that it's like you lose and then you have to start over again. It's a different season now. We could pull from random characters and have unique interactions. We could have like 20 characters designed, 10 per time, and they're randomly spliced. What if these flashbacks actually played an important mechanical piece, and you go back and you are, okay, I'm practicing this recipe in the past.
Oh,
time travel.
Whoa.
Time travel. So, Great British Baking Show is the legal name. Time travel Great British Baking Show game.
It's kind of like the Blades in the Dark mechanic with flashbacks, where you can go back and set something up when you're struggling with it in the moment. It could be like you have a limited number of flashbacks per challenge, and then it's like a way of getting a practice run at doing something, or of getting a hint at doing something.
Yeah, that is really cool. And then you also have this like emergent storytelling thing of learning more about your family from doing this, and like asking questions directly to the person who taught you how to cook, because it's like, I messed this up in the future. And so you're asking these, you're going to this alternate reality where you asked exactly the question you needed to do that thing.
Right. And there's also like with the technical challenges, frequently people will be like, you know, I've never seen this before, and then there will be one person who's like, oh my god, I've actually made this, or I saw the recipe for this yesterday. So then having like I guess like the equivalent of like rolling a history check in D&D.
Exactly.
It's like if you have a chance of having seen a recipe for something. Yeah.
This is a diverging path, and I like this one more, but the other thing that I was just thinking is you could do a Sonic Adventure style. There's different stories for each contestant, and at the beginning you pick a contestant, and then you know, are going until you reach the end of their path. But there's 12 of them, so that'd be a lot of game to make. So
Yeah, and I also I like the idea that we're playing as this person who has the particular relationship to cooking of like it's all about this one person.
Totally.
You know, we're playing as the most interesting person who has the most in their past about cooking. I mean, there's also the argument to be made for everyone has an interesting history with whatever they're passionate about, and so that would work in favor of what you're saying. But I like the idea that this person is really accessing this past and pulling from it directly every time, Antonigo style.
I also think that, I guess, two other thoughts about this. One is there are such like strong archetypes of the kinds of people who go on the Great British Bake Off, like you know, like you said, like the young baker who Paul is intimidated by, or like, you know, there's so many like specific kinds of people who go on the show, like, you know, like eccentric old man, with a million different hobbies, eccentric old man, eccentric old woman, and so having, I think, the other contestants be like, you know, those sort of more like stand-ins for those kinds of archetypes. I feel like it makes more, if you were doing multiple playable characters, it would feel more like you were playing like a number of different stereotypes, you know, or a number of different like sort of cardboard cutouts of characters, whereas having them there and fitting into those archetypes when you're playing as a more like carefully crafted character, I think would work better.
Totally.
I'm really liking the idea right now. I don't know how clear I made this before, but I'm really liking the idea right now of if it is different runs every time, and it's like, okay, you now go back and you remember learning this thing, meaning you do it in the past. Whenever you do a new run, is this slightly alternate reality where it is this different formation of these people, and then having like technically overscoped, but having it be so that their AIs grow different amounts based on who else is there and what you do. So it's like, oh, this person did better because this person always forms this really close relationship with this person if they're in the same thing, and forms a rivalry with this other person. So this time the kid who's really afraid of this, or who's really close with this person and learns from them, who's really intimidated by this other person and pushes themselves to be better. Now the kid is this huge rival of yours for this particular challenge, or for all of these challenges, and then the game gets harder that way. That could be the kind of like challenge scale for this thing.
Right.
There's also, I think there's something interesting you could do with, because one of the things that obviously they cut a lot of from the show is like the bakes are in the oven, or you know, or the bread is proofing or whatever, and it's just people sitting around. And a lot of the time they'll have like one or two shots of, you know, like people just standing around like talking while they're waiting for things to be done. I think that having like dialogue sections in those where you like, you know, have a ton of pre-written stuff in the way of like a game like, I haven't played it, but Hades or Pyre, which I have played. Having a ton of pre-written interactions that you can have with characters that then get slotted into different different empty spaces in the actual progress of cooking.
I love that.
That's such a cool idea. It's the like pacing thing of bunch of quick, you know, mini game style. I wrote down Cooking Mama style. You know, cooking things where you're stirring the thing, then you're moving it to the, you know, stand mixer, and then you're rolling it up, and then you're putting it in the oven, and then it's this super fast-paced thing that then cuts directly to like talking to someone while your things are baking, and it's this like fast-paced versus slow-paced.
And I think with this idea that the relationships will be different every single time, I really like what you're pulling from, of like having just a ton of dialogue written, and then just having a very simple system of like, grouchier X person usually says that, like, pulls from this pool of dialogue, you know, but like happy light, like person who keeps winning the what do they win?
Star Baker,
like person who's won Star Baker version of this person pulls from this kind of pool of dialogue, and then your relationship with them is has more potential to grow in some cases and less potential to grow in other cases, and your relationship to them growing could play mechanically into like borrowing ingredients and like getting advice, even like like someone like bailing you out in like a really like in Persona 5, how like you can be in a really bad spot but then someone else can like bail you out of that bad spot if you're connected to the internet, which in this case is just if you have someone there who's friends with you.
Something I just realized thinking about, you talking about like the, like flashbacks to thinking about family members and that, and the finales of the seasons, what they do is they bring in like all of the family and friends of the 3 people who make it to the finale, and then they announce the award in front of them and they all get to try their bakes. So the idea of like, if you make it to the finale, then you get to actually meet your family and friends who you've been seeing in flashbacks is actually really cool.
That's awesome.
So good.
And also just that person isn't there.
Yeah.
Free real estate. I think that's really, really cool. And I think that then we can make the game incredibly challenging with this roguelite thing of like
Great British Bake Off, the incredibly challenging roguelite.
Of like every single time you lose, you do go back, learn new lessons in your childhood, and then try it again in this slightly alternate version of reality. And it's like basically a guarantee that you won't make it through without continuing to learn from all these different histories.
I love that this is the only reality TV show that we're doing a game of in Game Jelly Season 2.5, and it's the one where we decided to make it an alternate reality, time-traveling adventure.
Yeah.
This is such a small little mechanical thing, but there should be a Mario Kart style get ready, set, bake, where you have to press the button on the second one to get a boost.
That is good, yeah.
So random. I do think the first time it goes back should be a really interesting thing of like, day 1, you're here, you're having a fun time cooking. The lose condition, you don't tell the player what's going to happen if they lose. It's like you are going home. The player doesn't really know, and then eats the thing they made as they're like packing up to go, is transported back in time to their childhood, and that's when we first learn that this is going to have this roguelite thing. Is like when you first lose, it's kind of an uncertainty of how that's handled in the game, and then it's like, no, that's the whole thing. That is the whole game right there.
One other thing that I think it would make sense to implement in the gameplay is that like one of the big challenges of being on the show is like time management, and like a lot of what it comes down to is people being like, I messed this thing up, will I do better if I start over from scratch and it's potentially underdone, or will it be better if I work with the thing that I know I messed up? And so having some kind of inbuilt mechanic like that where you can sacrifice more of your time to try and redo things, but then there's like a cascading, like you're slipping across the finish line.
I love that.
That's so good. Also, that just made me think, they always talk about like, did you get to practice this in the week before? And so deciding like, I'm going to practice my signature, for this amount of time, I'm going to practice my showstopper for this amount of time.
And then that could like affect how much ability you have to flashback during those.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that like there's the doing it phase, there's the practice phase, and then the practice phase dictates, it informs something about how the flashback phase goes. I was also thinking the flashback phase as kind of a representation of how like different things feel in childhood should have totally different cooking mechanics, but should teach things for the main mechanics, and should just make you a better chef in the in the main gameplay parts.
It could be something like you're acting as like an assistant to the person who's doing it. So you're watching somebody else do the challenges that you do in the main section, and then you're doing like giving some assistance to them.
That's so cute.
That's awesome. I adore that you're learning from watching in the flashbacks. You're learning from watching in the practice. You're learning from doing. Yeah.
You could even, I don't know exactly how this would be implemented, but there might be something interesting you could do where you are providing assistance to the person in the flashback, and then you are kind of getting that assistance in the present day when you're doing it. I don't know what that would look like, but
yeah, there's even something with like, if we have this like joke character of this 8-year-old just having like some connection moment of like realizing that like, oh yeah, this is their formative moment. And like, I should give them some, you know what I mean? I should give them some credit, give them some support, give them something to do to help me.
I think the 8-year-old takes a nap when they're judging the 8-year-old's work.
Yeah.
Paul Hollywood reaches out for a Hollywood shake, and the 8-year-old is just asleep on the floor.
What if, something that occasionally happens on the show that is always like, they always super dramatize it when this happens, is that somebody drops one of their like bakes when they're carrying it up or otherwise moving it around. The idea of every character has like a strength stat and that gives them a random chance of dropping it.
And if you had to do push-ups,
funny.
if sometimes in like break periods you had to do push-ups.
There should be like a stat screen that's like your character T-posing, and it's like rotating and
unironically
showing different,
agree.
Points to their head and says intellect. And like,
do we want to do a minigame minute for this?
I think that sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, it's all mini games.
It's all minigames. That's the thing. Do you want to pull up a timer for us?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That looked like you were asking the audience if they wanted to pull up a timer.
Pull up your timers now.
You pull up your timer.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Before the baking, there's a stand-up mini game for the hosts, where they have to tell jokes before the show.
Very nice.
I think that there are a lot of baking tasks where you have to like stream eggs slowly into something so that they don't curdle. So having something where like you have to push gently on the joystick to get it into the right area so that you're pouring at the right rate.
That's really, really nice. I realized after writing this down that this is a baking show, but fishing for ingredients.
That's so good. You have to use the baking tray to fan off your bake, like
nice.
In the show.
Whisking meringue. I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
it's just timing based sort of like get it into the green zone spot kind of thing.
Yeah, I was just thinking like the Palia chopping game where it's like a Guitar Hero, like get the thing when it goes through the thing.
Yeah.
You have to just like an icing game of
icing.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
Mr. Decoration, has to be in there.
Roses and stuff like that.
Kind of like the Mario Party thing where you're doing the chain chomp.
Totally.
Is kind of what I was picturing.
We gotta play Mario Party tonight. That's not related. That'll be after the show. We won't play Mario Party on the show. Sorry. Yeah, we hadn't talked about it, but you are also the only one of us who bakes regularly.
That's true. I kind of realized this as we were coming up with minigame. When I heard your first minigame, I was like, oh, you have a knowledge base to pull from. I know very little.
Bit of a great British baker myself.
Minus one of
I'm
them.
a bit of a great British baker.
Oi, 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 what's all this baking then? That's what the host
See, that was
say.
my joke British accent, but that's your real British accent.
Goodness. Keating and I lived in Britain for like 2 months once.
Yeah.
So
and I
should be better at that.
I picked up a little while I was there. Sorry I came back with a bit of an accent then.
This has been Game Jelly. We'd like to thank Dylan Lynch for writing and performing our theme music and Ruth Demery for producing the show.
Isn't it sorry, this is just me thinking about my own stuff over here. Isn't it amazing how much just one person can change the vibe of a room? Anyway,
that is a crazy loaded thing to say in a room with 4 people in it.
Who was he thinking about? I mean, these three have been in the room. Ruth behind the camera. These three have been in the room all day, and I'm new here, so I think I haven't guessed.
I wonder why you thought that. Should we? Well, first of all, I'm going to ask you if you want to plug anything, and I think you just started something that you should plug.
True. Yeah, last time I was on the show, I plugged your local library. This time,
So awesome. By the way. So go ahead.
I'm plugging my. I just started an Instagram account called Nature Walks Animated, where I share things that I animate. I like to do cutout animation in the sort of massive extended universe of content that people in this room produce. I animate stuff for a show that Ruth does for a public library. Nature Walks Animated Instagram.
This time you're plugging your local library instead of...
And speaking of Instagram, I think we've been forgetting to shout this out, but you can follow us at @game_jelly to get updates on the show. I've been Tieren Costello.
And I'm Keating Shahmehri.
And I'm Shahmehri Costello.
And we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, let's give them the Hollywood shake to sign off.
Perfect.
Okay, let's leave.
Actually, I wish I had thought of a POV don't mess up the Hollywood handshake mini game in the mini game.
Did you get that?
Genius.
Good. Okay, that is so good.